He then adds that he'll be verifying Alu's story by questioning the very people Alu has bribed. With a dismissive wave, he tells Alu to go on and do whatever he feels he must, but reminds the man that he is still very much under his thumb. Alu can only apologize profusely and promise to return without delay. He then instructs a brown-haired guard to show Sir Baron around the storage facility while he is away, and the guard acknowledges with a simple yes. Alu then leans in, whispering to the guard to make absolutely sure that Jyn Runandell does not leave the mansion grounds until he gets back, to which the guard agrees. Meanwhile, Alu storms down the hallway, seething with rage at Jyn Runandell's sheer arrogance. He mutters under his breath, thinking, that little brat, acting as if he owns the entire world. He lets out a string of curses. He was inwardly seething over the fortune he'd poured into the Zippel family, vowing to find some way to either buy them out or reclaim his influence. In the meantime, the entire group was busy combing through a vast library. Moroccan casually told Jill to help herself to anything she fancied. When she questioned if that was truly all right, he assured her it was, remarking that it was highly probable that nothing in this entire collection hadn't been stolen in the first place. As they sifted through the tomes, a guard with brown hair was suddenly struck on the head by a book. He exclaimed in frustration, "Good grief, it's all just worthless trash." Moroccan then commented that Alu would almost certainly figure out that Jyn Runandell was an imposter. By the time Jyn returned and was asked about his plan, he simply shrugged. He replied nonchalantly that they were just taking whatever they wanted for free and planned to be long gone before Alu made his return. He then pried open a small box, revealing a ring inside, and thought to himself, "Found it." Jilly, still rattled by their brazen actions, asked if they intended to keep acting like some reincarnated protagonist on a reckless quest. Jyn Runandell, however, took her worried question as a high compliment. At that very moment, Jed appeared holding a stack of papers, announcing that he had located the account ledgers for the slaves, just as requested. The records were complete, detailing all their birthplaces and ages. Jyn Runandell praised him with a simple, "Good job," before declaring that their work here was finished. He urged everyone to make their exit. However, the same brown-haired guard moved to stop him, explaining that the boss was on his way with the accounting books. The guard added that they were expected to remain in the mansion until he arrived. In response to this, Jyn Runandell swiftly attacked him. He knocked the man unconscious with a single blow. Jed applauded in amazement, remarking that Jyn wasn't just a master of magic but a formidable fighter as well. However, he couldn't comprehend why Jyn was now assaulting Alu's men. Jyn Runandell then turned to Jed and asked if he had a family. Jed confirmed that he had a son. Jyn instructed him to take the boy and flee immediately, suggesting the Beeman Empire as the ideal destination. Jed was clearly stunned, and Runandell advised him to turn over the accounting books and present himself as a whistleblower, explaining it was the only way to guarantee his safety. But Jed refused, insisting he would remain by Jin's side until the very end, thinking to himself that he had invested far too much into this golden opportunity to simply let it vanish. Desperately, Jed pleaded with Jyn to let him serve by his side in his grand endeavors. With a flicker of regret in his eyes, Jyn Runandell reveals the truth this reborn Manhwa hides. He wasn't actually Baron Zippel at all. The revelation left Jed utterly speechless. The scene then jumps forward 2 hours, where Alu has returned, reporting that he'd heard from the Zippel's direct line that the real Baron Zippel was known for his long, silver hair. His eyes then fell upon the unconscious guard on the floor. Just as another guard hurried over, addressing him as boss, Alu curtly told him to speak, and the guard began to explain that the intruders had taken all the information on the slaves and other clients before fleeing, declaring that their test was now complete. Alu furiously ordered them to pursue the intruders, but the guard could only apologize, stating that they had already made their escape. Enraged, Alu seized the guard's face in his massive hand and violently threw him across the room, roaring that they were to take every last man and hunt down the imposters. He swore an oath that he would skin them alive with his own 2 hands. Elsewhere, Morin was sitting by a fire with the rest of the group. He inquired if there was a particular reason Jyn Runandell had been lingering in the area. Jyn replied that he didn't see any point in worrying about Alu. Instead, he explained, what they needed to do was determine if Alu had any connection to the Runandels. Morin acknowledged the point, suggesting they should treat this as a final farewell before they all parted ways. He recalled giving him a Lucchini grimoire and even gifting him a masterpiece, the very item that made Alu panic at the sight of it back at the auction. Merkin couldn't help but wonder how Alu knew of such an ancient relic and actually managed to acquire it. Then, suddenly, some guards finally spot their location. It seems the truth this reborn Manhwa hides is about to be exposed as one guard shouts, "Over here! They're hiding right here!" He immediately calls for his boss. Moroccan grumbles about the commotion they're causing, while Jyn Runandell coolly suggests they have a brief chat. Alu finally notices them and declares, "I found him, the one who's been playing these idiots for fools." He then demands to know how Jyn Runandell could possibly dare to think he could deceive Alu and get away with it. Alu furiously vows to make an example of him by hanging him in the market to demonstrate precisely what happens to anyone who crosses the head of the testing spider. Jyn Runandell counters without missing a beat, listing all the evidence he has uncovered: the official registry of kidnapped slaves from Beeman, and the transaction ledger that details the sale of the ancient grimoire so desperately sought by the Zippel family, as well as the customer registry naming every single aristocrat who conveniently turned a blind eye to Alu's criminal operations. He dramatically throws the papers into the air, announcing that he has already spread this information far and wide. By tomorrow, he taunts, the entire world will know of your crimes. He then asks mockingly if magic mail isn't incredibly convenient, suggesting that Alo's downfall is now absolutely guaranteed. Alo shrieks a torrent of insults at him, threatening that his demise will be slow and agonizing. He vows to skin him alive and promises that every time Jyn passes out from the pain, he'll be revived with searing flames. Jyn Runandell calmly calls out to Moran, who responds with a hint of reluctance. Jyn informs him that he wants to face Alo in a one-on-one duel. Moran simply sighs, saying, "What a pain." Utterly outraged, Alo calls Jyn a crazy fool and demands to know what he possibly thinks he can accomplish on his own. He then orders his subordinates not to just stand around, but to attack immediately. Alo's men then launch their assault using powerful magic crystals. Alo instructs them to leave the kid alive, but to eliminate everyone else in the group. They move in to strike Moroccan first, but he counters with lightning speed, taking them down one after another. As he advances, he leaps high into the air, striking another guard with such overwhelming force that the others are left completely paralyzed in shock. Alo screams at his men, asking why they are just standing there. A gray-haired guard hastily explains that firing magic now could result in hitting their own comrades. Alo responds by snarling at him to just aim for the people in the back. At the same time, Jyn Runandell advises Jill to step back for a moment. The guards unleash a volley of fire and water magic spells, but Jyn instantly conjures a protective shield to defend himself and Jill. The guards are utterly shocked by this, as if witnessing a hero reincarnated from a forgotten age. Jyn Runandell remarks that things have become a bit easier thanks to his sister, Luna. She comments that despite everything, he didn't even say a proper goodbye to her before he left. Merkin observes that their adversaries are only relying on their superior numbers because they are fundamentally weak, grumbling. What a pain. Just drop dead all at once, he mutters, then launches a devastating attack using light magic, leaving everyone completely stunned by its sheer intensity. Alo then lunges directly at Moroccan, while one guard notices something is terribly wrong and asks, "What is happening?" Another guard remarks that their boss has gone completely mad. They question whether he has truly lost his mind, concluding that his insanity might actually save them a great deal of trouble. Moroccan reports that he has taken care of all the lesser threats, just as Jyn Runandell had asked, and tells him to now do as he wishes. Alo, seething with rage and cursing, demands to know who sent them, and for what reason. Jyn Runandell scoffs at the question, retorting that it's completely irrelevant whether he explains or not, because he's a dead man walking. As Alo lunges, Jyn Runandell deftly sidesteps, instantly recognizing Alo's incredible speed. Jyn thinks to himself that regardless of whether Alo is bluffing, he must remain vigilant and cannot afford to be eliminated without putting up a serious fight. Murakhan acknowledges that they've found a competent adversary, suspecting the rumors about Alo being a 7-star martial artist might actually be true. He notes that Alo is a far cry from Visho, their last opponent, and that this one possesses a palpable killing intent. Murakhan tells Jyn to give it his all, and most importantly, not to get himself killed. Alo expresses his contempt, remarking on Jin's sheer arrogance, and questioning how a mere wind mage dares to set foot on the front line of battle. Jyn Runandell fires back, asking if Alo, a complete rookie, is actually looking down on him before lunging forward with his blade. Alo asks about the sword just as he manages to parry Jin's strike. He immediately counterattacks, observing that Jyn Runandell is no ordinary mage after all. Jyn Runandell retreats a step before launching another assault. Alo moves with blinding speed, attempting to land a blow from behind, but Jyn dodges just in the nick of time. Alo's attack slams into the floor, and he taunts Jyn, calling it a pathetic attempt. Jyn Runandell recognizes that Alo is incredibly fast and hasn't even been fighting seriously, yet even so, it's already becoming too much for him to manage. Alo concludes that the massive fireball Jyn Runandell used back at the auction house must have been powered by an artifact. He's furious that he's in this situation because he fell for such a basic trick. The true problem, however, is the man who single-handedly wiped out all of his subordinates. Alo is absolutely certain that man is far stronger than he is. He can't understand why Murakhan is just standing there watching. Murakhan observes that Jyn seems to be taking a serious beating, muttering, "That little fool." Gilly, looking worried, asks if Murakhan plans on stepping in, noting that while it is the young master's wish to face a 7-star martial artist, it might be a little premature for him to attempt it. Murakhan just waves off her concern, saying it's perfectly fine and that the fool needs to learn how precious life is, especially for a soul who seems almost reincarnated. Gilly agrees, acknowledging the truth in his words. He then adds with a smirk that it seems she's already decided the kid is going to lose. Across the room, Alo lunges in to attack while Jyn Runandell desperately tries to block him. Everyone present is shocked by the sheer ferocity of Alo's assault. Alo charges once more, declaring that this next blow will be the end for Jyn. However, Jyn Runandell merely smirks, unleashing his fire magic and stating that back in the old days when a Runandell magic swordsman fought, a mere 2-star difference in power was completely meaningless to them. He then launches a powerful burst of fire at Alo, sending him flying backward. Alo, completely stunned, questions if that power really wasn't from an artifact. Suddenly realizing Jyn is a magic swordsman, a classic trope, where the hero of ***Reborn Manhwa hides ***his power. Jyn's sword begins to crackle with magical energy as he summons lightning to strike. Aloe tries to parry the attack, but his sword is knocked completely out of his hand. He mocks Jyn, saying that leaving himself so wide open will only lead to his own demise. Jyn Runandell strides forward, a magical ring glowing on his hand, and commands his helmet to release its power. Aloe is horrified, screaming to know what is happening. Jyn Runandell then raises his sword and carves a deep gash into Aloe. As he does, a dark magical aura envelops him completely. He then sheathes his sword. Murakana is taken aback by what he's just witnessed, commenting that it must be an MTA rune. Gilly asks him to clarify what an MTA rune is. Murakana begins to explain that thousands of years in the past, the artifact Muul was forged for Beamont, the very first emperor, who was famously the lover of a demon in that era. During a great war, Muul was crafted as a masterpiece capable of nullifying any attack below the 7th star power level. Murakana voiced his bewilderment as to how such a legendary item could have possibly fallen into the hands of a mere gang. Jyn Runandell, however, focused on Muul's rune, noting that this was the artifact destined for the Beamont Emperor in 5 to 6 years. His memory, sharp as if he were reincarnated, told him that during that exact period, the Academy and the press were thrown into utter chaos over this very helmet, and he recalled the precise when, where, and on which date it was originally found. Jyn then delivered a crushing blow to Aloe, telling him he had one last question for him before he met his end. He brought up the rumors of Aloe's connections to the Runandell family and demanded to know if it was true. Murakana retorted that he should have asked much earlier, questioning what kind of answer he could possibly expect from a man at death's door. Aloe conceded the point, confirming that he now understood Jyn Runandell's true identity. He admitted that while it was true he had failed, he was quick to clarify that Jyn Runandell was just the youngest member of the powerful family. Aloe then added that Jyn could not stop the other person. Murakana immediately asked what he meant by the other person. Jyn Runandell began to elaborate, mentioning the name Spider Aloe and speculating that it was almost certainly an alias. He explained that they would need to investigate this much deeper, because a 7-star martial artist acting as a gang leader with ties to the Runandell family was deeply suspicious. Murakana remarked that it wasn't entirely out of the ordinary, pointing out that one of his own 9-star ancestors once ran a tavern. Nevertheless, he insisted they had to identify the person Aloe was referring to, particularly since Jyn was destined to lead the family. He pieced it together. Aloe realized he had failed and couldn't stop that person. If Aloe had truly recognized his identity, then his failure was almost certainly linked to the illusion of the blade. The fact that he called him the youngest and unable to stop this individual indicated a deep knowledge of the power struggle brewing amongst his siblings. He considered the list of possible culprits, immediately dismissing his older sister. The reason? She had already left the family. Mayu, Anne, and the twins were also ruled out due to their youth and sheer lack of experience. The others were neither clever nor ambitious enough to orchestrate such clandestine schemes. He then narrowed it down to the most likely candidate, someone who was acutely obsessed with rank and had begun pulling strings the very moment they recognized his talent. Joshua Runandell, the next in line to be heir. Jyn Runandell concluded that no one else possessed as much influence as Joshua. Whether he was jumping to conclusions or not, he intended to uncover the truth this reborn Manhwa hides very soon. The scene then cuts to the next morning. A small boy with black hair is standing on the street, holding a bundle of newspapers and yelling that the Tessin gang has been completely wiped out. After a joint investigation between the Zippel family and the Mint, the wicked gang that had plagued the innocent was brought down in just one day. Jyn Runandell read the headline and commented that it looked like Jet had done his job well. He mused that while Jet might have to endure some harassment from the Zippel family and Beamont, it was a small price to pay for his life. Murakana commented that the criminals should have suffered more, but he was glad that the Zippel family and Beamont were taking all the credit. This meant that Jyn would be the one to collect all the benefits. Jyn Runandell agreed, listing his gains: a priceless ring, skilled mages, a 7-star knight, and even triumph in a genuine battle. At that very moment, Gilly approached, addressing Jyn Runandell as young master. She cautioned him that achieving the rank of a 7-star knight doesn't automatically equate to competence, and that he shouldn't grow complacent simply because he had defeated Aloe. She advised that it would be prudent to exercise greater caution in the future. Jyn Runandell concurred, admitting that they were no match for someone like Gilly, who was truly in a league of her own. He reassured her that he would be far more careful moving forward. Jyn Runandell then turned to express his gratitude to Jet, noting that because of his help, no one would have any reason to suspect their location. He suggested they could now relax and proceed to their next destination. Morin immediately inquired about where they were headed, to which Jyn Runandell replied that their destination was Tikkun, an independent city. Gilly chimed in, remarking that Tikkun is famously known for its 7 colors. Morin, intrigued, asked about the significance of these 7 colors. As they spoke, Jyn Runandell discreetly handed a few coins to an elderly man nearby. Gilly then explained that Tikkun is home to a massive information guild, which, alongside the Runandell, Zippel, and Beam organizations, is one of the most trustworthy sources of information available. Moran's eyes widened in realization. Jyn Runandell intended to gather intelligence on potential adversaries, much in the same way he had previously utilized Jet. He asked if that was indeed the plan, and Jyn Runandell simply acknowledged it as one of the possibilities. A short time later, a crew member announced that everyone was aboard, and the group embarked on their journey by boat. As the boat set sail, Jyn Runandell reflected that moving forward, he must prioritize the memories from before his regression, a secret this reincarnated, reborn Manhwa hides from the world. Especially while traveling with Gilly and Moran, ensuring his past knowledge serves a definitive purpose. Additionally, he began to consider the matters surrounding Vishal Ulianawaro and Allah's mysterious past connections to the Runandells. He realized there were so many things, like the Kalin ruins and forbidden magic, that required a thorough investigation. For this exact purpose, he had already determined that the Seven Colors Guild in Tikkun was the most suitable place to begin. After some time had passed on their journey, Moran mentioned that he had discovered something about the strange magic, or whatever it was, that had been left behind by Chenny. He believed it to be light magic. Hearing this, Jyn Runandell was visibly surprised, remarking that he thought that particular form of magic had vanished during ancient times. Moran confirmed that it had indeed, explaining that Chenny was once a formidable enemy of the Zippel clan, and true to their nature, the Zippels had erased all traces of their adversaries from the annals of history. That was the Zippel family's typical method. They simply eliminate anyone who becomes a nuisance to their ambitions. Moran added that this is precisely why no records of it exist, and warned that if Jyn couldn't transcend his current limitations, the Runandell family could very well suffer a similar fate in the future. He stressed that learning about this lost light magic could be absolutely crucial. At this, Jyn Runandell told Moran he was about to demonstrate something, emphasizing just how quickly he could adapt to new powers. He suggested that Moran should look forward to what he was about to see, as this might be the very type of magic he needed most right now. He then revealed a glowing sphere of magical energy in his hand. Jyn Runandell urged Moran to open his eyes wide and watch very carefully, remarking with a smirk that it was indeed light magic. But then he posed a question: why is it black? He then amplified its power, laughing as he did so, before asking how it felt to witness it for just a fleeting moment. Yet already experienced a sensation as if his very eyes were swelling shut. Jyn Runandell casually covered his face with one hand and commented that this particular magic could undoubtedly be used for both offense and defense. He identified it as Flashbang, one of Chenny's most signature abilities, and he's absolutely thrilled to have it in his possession. However, he then brings up a certain mage from the Heiser clan, prompting Murakhan to cut in, demanding to know why he's suddenly mentioning that mage. In response, Jyn Runandell produces a book, explaining it's a strange text, almost like a tale of someone reincarnated. The text is encoded so deeply that it even frustrates him. It's as if this reborn Manhwa hides a profound secret, and he's unsure if its contents will be useful. For the time being, Jyn suggests they set the book aside. Murakhan concurs, confident that one day they'll find a master decipherer capable of tackling it and revealing its secrets. The story then jumps forward 1 week, finding our heroes in the independent city of Tikkun, where Gilly is joyfully taking in the sights, exclaiming how beautiful the city is. Meanwhile, Jyn Runandell contemplates the city's unique status, a place situated on a small island in the southern central continent, completely neutral and unaffiliated with either the Runandell or the Zippel family. Despite its relatively small population, it's a bustling tourist destination, offering breathtaking ocean views from nearly every vantage point. Gilly remarks on the city's vibrant atmosphere and asks if they should start looking for a place to stay. Just as Murakhan leaps from her shoulder, Jyn agrees, suggesting they make their way towards the city center to find some lodging. In a flash, Murakhan shifts into his human form, immediately complaining that he refuses to stay in another wretched inn this time around. Jyn quickly scolds him, reminding him that he's been told time and again not to transform right in the middle of the city. Murakhan dismisses his concern, claiming that humans hardly ever notice. However, a young girl named Julia spots him transforming and points with wide-eyed excitement, shouting that a cat just transformed into a person. She then calls out to everyone around, announcing that a black cat became a black-haired man and demanding to know how he did it. The entire group is stunned by her sudden outburst. She then yells, "Teacher." A short while later, Jyn Runandell tries to convince Julia she must have seen things, asking how a cat could possibly transform into a human. Julia, now eating some ice cream, insists that it wasn't her, but her friend Yuri who saw it, and she is absolutely certain a black cat turned into that man. She then directly asks Jyn why he's lying. He denies it, insisting he isn't lying and that he's not some mister. Julia retorts that he is too lying, and he's definitely a mister. Jyn, desperately trying to de-escalate the situation, reminds her about the ice cream he just bought her, pleading for her to just pretend she didn't see anything, but she flatly refuses, declaring that she won't tell a lie. Gilly, standing beside Murakhan, worriedly asks what their next move should be. She explains that they initially thought Julia was lost, so their plan was to take her to the local garrison. But if this rumor starts spreading from there, it could attract the unwanted attention of the Zippel family. Murakhan brushes off the concern, confidently stating that no one would believe the word of a child. Gilly retorts that if Murakhan had only listened to the young master in the first place, they wouldn't be in this mess. After a moment, the little girl, Julia, points towards a nearby building, identifying it as the information center and adding that she doesn't like the garrison. Gilly, curious, asks her what's wrong with it. Julia explains that she hates it there because the guards are always harassing her mother and bothering her. Gilly voices her concern, wondering if the garrison is a corrupt place that uses violence to exploit the common people. Jyn Runandell plays devil's advocate, considering that for all they know, the child's mother might be a criminal, and suggests they should go inside to assess the situation for themselves. Upon entering, a guard immediately recognizes the girl, asking, "Aren't you Julia?" before ordering someone to fetch the leader, announcing that little Miss Julia has arrived. Jyn Runandell politely inquires if the guard is acquainted with the child, to which the guard simply chuckles and the man confirms he's all too familiar with the child, revealing she is the daughter of their leader. Jyn Runandell then inquires further about this leader's daughter. Just then, Julia spots her mother, Alicia Badger, in the distance. Jyn observes the leader of the garrison, contemplating whether that title is the full extent of her identity. Meanwhile, Julia joyfully runs to her mother, Alicia Badger, embracing her tightly. Alicia, with a gentle tone, chides her daughter, reminding her not to stray so far away. Julia pouts in response, complaining that her mother never plays with her. Alicia's expression softens as she apologizes, promising to spend plenty of time with her once her duties are complete. Julia, still skeptical, asks if she truly means it. She points out that Alicia was busy before and broke a similar promise. Alicia firmly reassures her, stressing that this time will be different, but explains that her work makes it impossible for her to simply walk away. It's then that Alicia Badger's gaze falls upon Jyn Runandell and his group, and she comments that nearly everyone in this city recognizes Julia, subtly suggesting Jyn should have exercised more caution. She then offers an apology for her tardy introduction, extending a hand and presenting herself as Alicia Badger, the leader of the Tikan garrison. Jyn accepts her handshake, introducing himself under the alias Jyn Grey and explaining he is merely a tourist visiting Tikan. She remarks that if he is indeed a tourist, then she ought to provide him with a token of gratitude, asking if there is anything at all he requires. He takes the opportunity to ask if she could possibly recommend some suitable lodgings. At that moment, Julia whispers something into her mother's ear, prompting Alicia Badger to pull out a pen and call out, requesting some paper. A guard swiftly provides it, and she quickly jots something down before handing the note to Jyn Runandell. Alicia explains that the note is a letter of recommendation bearing the garrison leader's official seal, which will ensure that wherever he chooses to go, presenting this letter will guarantee him the finest treatment. She thanks him once more for finding her daughter, to which Jyn responds that the gratitude is all theirs, before stating that they will be on their way. As Jin's group turns to depart, Alicia Badger quietly asks Julia if a cat truly transformed into a person. Julia confirms it with a nod, but adds that the others wish to keep it quiet, so she is pretending not to know anything. Alicia praises her daughter's discretion, noting that everyone has their secrets, and that some truths, like those a reborn Manhwa hides, are best kept private. She muses over the transformation, recognizing it as an ability exclusive to dragons. Elsewhere, Gilly has settled onto a bed, remarking on the exceptional quality of the service, noting that she hasn't experienced such luxury since she was back in Huffister, relaxing in her very own bed. She marvels at its softness, adding that this is precisely what a proper lodge ought to feel like. Gilly acknowledges the immense advantage their letter of recommendation has provided, saying that everything has been proceeding flawlessly in Tikan and remarks on their incredible string of luck since their arrival. She then brings up the ice cream she saw Julia enjoying earlier, asking if she might have some as well, given that it's such a popular local treat. Jyn Runandell, slightly amused, wonders why she is seeking his permission and simply tells her to go ahead and order some. Gilly happily exits the room, promising she will return shortly. Murakhan then comments that it has been quite some time since they lived in such opulence, remarking that it almost feels as if they are on a proper vacation. He then turns to Jyn, asking what his plan is for meeting the Seven Colors. Murakhan points out the obvious difficulty, stating that the Seven Colors will not be an easy group to contact. Jyn Runandell calmly replies that he has a plan already in mind, explaining that the Seven Colors is the most renowned information guild in all of Tikan, and at its very center is a figure known as the Noble Sword, Kashmir. Jyn reflects that Kashmir is a swordsman of legendary skill, so widely respected it's as if he were a master reincarnated from a bygone era, one who was even. He was recommended to teach introductory swordsmanship to the Runandell family, but that was the absolute limit of what the public knew about him. Jyn, however, having been reincarnated, recalled that in 10 years, Kashmir would reveal his true identity as the Emperor of Vermont. He would then weaponize the intelligence gathered by the Seven Colors to seize genuine ruling power from Vermont, the Zippel clan, and even the Runandell family, gathering the support required to establish Tikan as an independent kingdom with himself as its very first king. Jyn assessed Kashmir Alphen as a profoundly meticulous individual, not merely gifted in swordsmanship, but a master of concealment who operated in the shadows for a very long time, a key figure the way a reborn Manhwa hides its true protagonist. He realized this man could become a powerful ally, but the immediate challenge was figuring out how to approach him. At that very moment, Gilly burst into the room, alerting Jyn Runandell and Murakhan that something was gravely wrong. She explained that there wasn't a single soul in the lodge. Every last employee and guest had vanished, and she could feel that something was deeply amiss. Kashmir Alphen then placed a hand upon her shoulder, inquiring about their condition and asking if he might be permitted to intrude. For a split second, Jyn Runandell stared at him, wondering why Kashmir Alphen was here, before Murakhan, incandescent with rage, moved to attack. Jyn Runandell immediately intervened, shouting for him to halt and not to take the man's life. Murakhan flared into his shadow dragon form, then caustically mimicked Kashmir's greeting, asking if he was well before snarling that no, he wasn't, and questioning if he was an imbecile for assuming otherwise. Jyn Runandell's mind raced, questioning why the noble sword Kashmir was in this place. By all accounts, Kashmir should have no business whatsoever in Taiken, particularly since they'd only just arrived and had not yet caused any trouble. It was then that Jyn realized that Kashmir was not by himself. 34? No. There were even more guards accompanying him. He understood that at this rate, they could be completely overwhelmed and urged Murakhan to calm himself, noting that the space was far too small and fighting here would endanger Gilly. Murakhan reverted back to his human form and demanded of Kashmir, "Do you have any idea who I am?" Kashmir simply asked what he was talking about. Murakhan repeated the question, "Do you know who I am?" before muttering that the man was an idiot as he drew Gilly into a protective embrace. He also vented his fury, demanding to know why his language was so casual and if he showed such disrespect to everyone simply because he carried his sword at his waist and dragged his followers around. For once, Jyn Runandell reflected, Murakhan was actually holding himself back. Kashmir Alphen attempted to clarify, stating that wasn't his meaning. Murakhan angrily retorted, asking what he did mean, accusing Kashmir of storming in uninvited and demanding he provide some answers. He repeated his question, insisting, "Do you know who I am?" Kashmir conceded that he did not know Murakhan, and then taunted, "Then why do you speak so informally? As if you're above everyone else just because you have a dragon and a nanny with you." Jyn Runandell stepped in, telling Murakhan to stand down, saying that was quite enough. He asked Murakhan to relax and put his weapon away, then politely addressed the man, asking if he was the noble sword, Kashmir. Jyn Runandell added that he had heard a great deal about his reputation and was well aware of him. Kashmir appeared baffled and questioned how Jyn Runandell knew his name and, more importantly, who he was. Jyn Runandell formally introduced himself, revealing his true name without a hint of hesitation. The sudden disclosure left both Murakhan and Gilly utterly stunned. Jyn then suggested that they relocate their conversation to a more appropriate setting, offering to answer every single one of his questions there. After a short while, Kashmir Alphen took a seat opposite Jyn Runandell, while Gilly and Morin stood sentinel behind their young master. Jyn offered his thanks to Kashmir for dismissing his soldiers, noting that such an action implied a significant degree of trust. Kashmir reflected internally that he'd only brought the soldiers after receiving a startling report of a dragon sighting, a report that now seemed to be a grave misjudgment on his part. Instead, it was Moran who was radiating a palpable fury. Kashmir was certain the crushing pressure he felt wasn't from any mortal man, but from the dragon itself. He realized with a chilling certainty that if he hadn't intervened, everyone in the room might have perished. His gaze then fell upon Gilly McClen, recalling that he had met her before his fall from grace in the Beament Palace. He remembered her legendary military prowess during training drills, but now he couldn't detect any hint of it. It's like a character from some ***reborn Manhwa hides *** their true strength. He wondered about her connections to the people she now served. Kashmir Alphen then spoke, asking if Jyn was truly who he claimed to be. He noted that while Jyn didn't seem to be lying, he still had lingering questions. Jyn simply invited him to proceed. Kashmir asked why Jyn was traveling with a dragon, mentioning that since ancient times, dragons have been known to form contracts with magicians who have their own pacts with a god or with someone wielding a special power, typically a Zippel, not a Runandell. Kashmir then pressed further, inquiring if Jyn's family knew he was accompanied by a dragon. Jyn Runandell simply responded that they did not know. He cautioned that if this information were to be exposed, his family would not react kindly. Kashmir remarked that Jyn was discussing a secret so profound it could cost him his life, suggesting that what truly mattered wasn't merely the fact that he was a Runandell. He then demanded that Jyn explain the reason for this alliance with the dragon. Instead of providing a direct answer, Jyn Runandell asked why Kashmir had sought a meeting with the dragon. He stated that since he had shared a great secret, he expected one in return. Kashmir revealed that his daughter, Julia, claimed to have seen a cat transform into a person, and that was the reason he had come to investigate. Jyn Runandell then asked if he truly believed the words of a child. Kashmir replied that his daughter was no ordinary child. She's a contractor with Asmiel. Jyn Runandell sought clarification, asking if he meant the god of sight. Kashmir confirmed this, adding that a contractor of Asmiel would never misinterpret an object or an event, as the god of sight bestows upon them a vision of absolute precision. He noted that many powerful individuals would do anything to become a contractor with Asmiel. Therefore, he was cautious about revealing this information so freely. Murakhan, sensing something was wrong, shifted closer to Kashmir. He questioned how Julia could be a contractor if there was no dragon present, pointing out that he had not sensed any draconic energy in the vicinity. Jyn Runandell observed that Asmiel's dragons are known for the powerful bond they share with their contractors. It was highly unusual for one to leave a child alone, indicating that something peculiar was afoot. He said he was uncertain of the full picture, but it seemed to revolve around that very fact. Murakhan asked what he was alluding to. Kashmir Alphen explained that Julia's guardian dragon had disappeared about 1 year ago, possibly involving the Zippel family or the Beament Empire. Though this was just speculation, Murakhan countered that it didn't make sense. No dragon is so foolish as to be captured, and certainly not for an entire year. He then asked if Julia was approximately 5 years of age. Kashmir confirmed this was correct. Murakhan then pointed out that if Julia truly is an Asmiel's contractor, the one who is *** reincarnated *** in this world. So, if her guardian dragon isn't close by, she could soon descend into madness or become permanently crippled from the absence of its protective aura. Kashmir is visibly stunned by this revelation. Miran elaborates, stressing that contractors of Ocel are granted the ability to perceive the future. Yet, what most mortals don't realize is that this gift exacts a tremendous toll on a dragon's mental fortitude. He clarifies that at Julia's tender age, she is too young to differentiate between prophetic visions and reality, which is the only reason she hasn't yet shown any debilitating symptoms. He warns that if she continues to glimpse the future without any form of protection, just as she is now, her visions will become completely uncontrollable within 1 or 2 years. Jyn Runandell presses him to explain further, questioning how merely seeing the future could possibly lead to such a catastrophic disability. Kashmir answers that the reason is tied to the fundamental principle of causality. The one who foresees an event is bound to let it unfold as they witnessed. If they defy it, Ocel's punishment begins. Should a person witness the future and attempt to alter its course, particularly in matters of life and death, they invite severe repercussions. He adds that any contractor who dares to defy the law of causality is ultimately fated for destruction. Kashmir then states that because of her power, his daughter has been living in an entirely different reality from the rest of them, and judging by Jin's expression, it appears he is finally grasping the true gravity of her predicament. Kashmir concludes that he has no choice but to find her guardian dragon with the utmost urgency to guarantee her safety. There is simply no other alternative. With that, Kashmir Alphen drops to his knees, addressing Moroccan as the mighty dragon he is. He explains that while the manager omitted this detail, he is the leader of the Intelligence Guild, the Seven Colors, and is supremely confident in his network's capabilities. Despite this, for 1 entire year, he has failed to locate his daughter's guardian dragon. Upon hearing this, Miran remarks that he is now utterly convinced their encounter with Julia upon arriving in Tikkun was no mere coincidence. It seems Ocel himself is guiding them to aid his young contractor, a fateful twist like a secret reincarnated, reborn Manhwa hides. He then turns to Moroccan, the great dragon, pleading for his intervention. Moroccan, however, brushes off the request, claiming there's not much he can do even if he wanted to. He then gestures toward Jyn Runandell, indicating that the final decision rests entirely with him. At that, Jyn Runandell steps toward Kashmir Alphen and asks him to rise. He acknowledges that while they share no profound connection, their current matter concerns the safety and well-being of an innocent child. He suggests they approach the situation rationally and combine their strengths to locate Julia's guardian dragon. Kashmir Alphen, overwhelmed, expresses his profound gratitude, vowing he will never forget their act of kindness. He silently reflects that although this turned out far better than he'd hoped, a lingering sense of unease remains. If his own Seven Colors network failed to find the missing dragon, then locating it might very well require intelligence from colossal powers like the Runandell or Zipfel clans. Moroccan then asks if Tikkun is aligned with the Zipfel family, to which Jyn Runandell clarifies that Tikkun is merely an independent city with no affiliations. Seemingly satisfied, Moroccan then asks Kashmir Alphen if his information network is as capable as he claims, specifically asking if they possess data on other dragons. Kashmir confirms that they do, explaining that they can pinpoint which continent every known dragon resides on. Moroccan is pleased by this and requests all the intelligence they have on dragons located within the Vimant Empire. Jyn Runandell quickly advises against disclosing this information, but Moroccan dismisses his concern, stating that this particular approach is something of a last resort. Traditionally, he adds, dragons are. Believe he knew everything. In the meantime, Enya hurried over to Miss Quickle, who was perusing a newspaper, urging her to take a look. Has she arrived? Miss Quickle asked. No, it's news about Sir Jyn again, Enya replied, her eyes shining. Isn't he just incredible? She pointed out that he was the same age as them yet had already achieved the rank of a 5-star. Enya, filled with awe, wondered aloud if she could ever reach that same level. Without a doubt, Miss Quickle confirmed, as a contractor to a god, you can absolutely achieve such heights. Enya questioned if that was truly possible. Her mentor reassured her, explaining that compared to the scion of the family with a mere guardian, especially that black-haired boy, her status as the contractor for Ulta, the god of time, granted her infinitely more potential. She then gave a stern instruction, Enya, go home now, and do not step outside until I get back. Did something happen? Enya asked, concerned. Not exactly, she answered cryptically. It's just that a certain darkness has begun to surface. A short time later, Jyn Runandell was soaring through the sky seated atop Murakan's majestic dragon form. The great dragon warned him, soon, very soon, I will unleash my presence. The dragons lurking in Vermont will have no choice but to crawl out of their holes, he continued, so make sure you hide yourself well. You can't afford to be spotted. Jyn Runandell pulled his hood over his face, nodding in understanding. I'm ready, he confirmed. All right, Murakan declared, we're starting now. With that, they began a steep, rapid descent. The scene then flashes back to Kashmir Alphen handing a stack of documents to Murakan. Here it is, he said, the complete list of dragons currently active within the Vermont territories, just as you requested. Murakan glanced over the papers and scoffed, so this is where they're hiding. It's like a cheap reborn Manhwa hides its final boss in the starting village. He trailed off, then shook his head. He dismissed his own thought with a casual, never mind, it'll probably be fine. Is there a problem? Jyn Runandell asked. But Murakan quickly assured him there was nothing to worry about. Dealing with other dragons is always a bit of a gamble, he admitted, but let's get moving. We have a long journey ahead of us. Just as they were turning to leave, Khmer Alphen called out, "Great Dragon, please wait a moment." Murakhan sighed. "Drop the Great Dragon nonsense. I'm not some cult leader." He turned back saying, "Just call me by my name." "Sir Murakhan," Khmer obliged, bowing deeply in gratitude. He then made a humble plea. "I beg of you, please take care of this matter and save my beloved daughter." Murakhan nodded, telling Khmer Alphen that before he departed, there were two crucial details he needed to remember. First, he began, "Until I return with the cure, you must keep your daughter physically active all day long. By exhausting her energy, the seal's power will naturally diminish." He instructed him clearly, "From the moment she wakes up, play with her. Whether you're running around or doing anything else, just make her tired. Ensure she's so worn out that she falls asleep without any trouble." Khmer nodded resolutely, promising to keep his daughter busy and exhausted. He then inquired about the second detail. A grin spread across Murakhan's face. "Ice candies," he said. "Bring some over when you can. We never got to try any because of you." Jilly couldn't help but remark, "You really are a true gentleman, you know that?" Murakhan just laughed, pointing out, "Weren't you the one who said you wanted to try some ice candies earlier?" Jilly shook her head, clarifying, "That's not what I meant. I was talking about how you tactfully gave him more instructions to help put his mind at ease," she explained. Murakhan simply shrugged. "I couldn't care less about the feelings of a creature like that," he grumbled. The scene then transitions back to the present, where Jyn Runandell reflects on the moment. He mused that while Murakhan often feigned indifference, he was actually incredibly thoughtful, a trait of their Black Dragon clan he'd come to appreciate, especially since he was reincarnated. Just then, the dragon Murakhan shattered his train of thought, announcing an arrival and pointing to a dragon approaching from the opposite direction. He identified the newcomers as Robbies and Unel, remarking that they were the two he thrashed the most. Rowan told Jyn to put on his helmet, as Jyn Runandell commented on how thoroughly Murakhan must have terrorized them for them to appear so quickly just by sensing his presence. Murakhan nonchalantly explained that any who dared enter his territory received a beating. That was simply how things were back in the day. Jyn Runandell asked if he didn't feel any pride in that. Robbies then called out to Murakhan, demanding why he was there. Murakhan responded by addressing Robbies as the Earth Dragon and acknowledging Unel, declaring that he's been practically reincarnated from a long slumber for a task that requires their assistance. Unel, looking clearly apprehensive, said that the great ruler of the Tall Mountains and close friend of soldiers may not know the details of his current predicament, but this was certainly not the ideal time for his return. "Please, avoid this area," Unel urged. Robbies pointed out that a young contractor was still in this region and that Unel desired no conflict on the coast of Bent. Murakhan, completely undeterred, asked if they were daring to order him to retreat, declaring there is nowhere under the heavens that he must avoid. Unel, sounding completely exasperated, suggested that Murakhan should simply flee, explaining that everything was in chaos due to the disruptive presence he was spreading. Murakhan demanded to know what Robbies was talking about. Robbies explained that Quikantel was flying over with plans to kill him. Murakhan confirmed if he meant the Silver Dragon. At that moment, Quikantel's voice demanded to know what his relationship was with the guardian dragon of the Time God. Murakhan casually revealed that Quikantel was his ex. Robbies pleaded with Murakhan, saying he was begging him to leave, emphasizing that their contractor was still just a child and could get hurt if caught in the crossfire. Unel warned that the other dragons didn't know he had awakened, a secret a reborn Manhwa hides, and if he didn't leave now, he was going to spread the news. Murakhan told Jyn Runandell to hold on tight, then charged toward Robbies and Unel, striking them with enough force to send them flying. A panicked Robbies suggested they flee and let out a stream of curses at Murakhan. Jyn Runandell demanded to know what on earth Murakhan was doing. Murakhan told him to stay focused as more were coming, and he lunged to attack again. As the other dragons counterattacked, he realized that even if his opponents were underestimated, their ultimate skills were above an 8-star level, and he was firing them off repeatedly. Quikantel finally arrived, cursing at Murakhan, screaming that he should have stayed dead, and demanded to know what he was thinking by showing up there with such an audacious look on his face. Jyn Runandell asked if they truly had to fight against that monster. Murakhan indicated that it looked that way. Jyn asked how long he dated her. Murakhan replied, 500 years, adding that it's about 5 years in human terms. He then told Jyn to stab her with Bradamante the moment he got an opening. Jyn hesitated, noting that she was still his ex, and asked if stabbing her wasn't too harsh. Murakhan dismissed his concern, pointing out that he never associated with those who lacked class. He advised that if things turned bad, Jyn should pour all his power into one strike, saying it would take that much just to land a hit on her. And with that, Quikantel transformed, shifting into her colossal dragon form, bellowing that escape is impossible and his grave will be the ocean floor. Murakhan pleads for Quickle to hold on and compose herself, admitting he knows she loathes him, but stressing that they have far more pressing matters to deal with before they settle their personal vendetta. Ignoring his words completely, she unleashes a devastating magical spell directly at him. He narrowly evades and starts to fall back. Quickle gives chase, her attacks growing in ferocity, even attempting to snap her jaws around him. Murakhan wonders aloud why she's so completely unhinged as their powers begin to clash. She hurls another blast of magic his way, screaming in pure frustration. For crying out loud, what is wrong with you? At such close range, black shadow aura to blind her, desperate to buy himself a few precious moments. Jyn Runandell watches the chaotic spectacle unfold and notes that it's a stroke of luck he decided to come. Otherwise, if Mirren had been ensnared by that silver dragon, They might never have even known what happened to him. Moroccan reassures Jyn Runandell that he won't perish, adding that no matter how powerful Quickle may be, she cannot penetrate this sanctuary of shadow. He admits that forging an opportunity to pacify her will be incredibly difficult, proposing they find a way to soothe her through dialogue. However, she violently disperses the darkness and scoffs at him, declaring that if he truly believed his shadow liberation would be effective, he is a complete fool. Mirin, taken aback, demands to know how she managed that. She berates him, pointing out that he hasn't grasped the true extent of his own weakness. If he still thinks he's the same man he once was, he is sorely mistaken. It's like he's been reincarnated as a lesser being. Mirin tries to de-escalate, telling her to stop and trying to remind her of the history they shared. He explains he came seeking an answer, but she furiously retorts that the mere thought of their past makes her want to rip him into 10,000 pieces. She lunges again, but Moroccan dodges and asks her to calm down, questioning if this extreme reaction is solely because they broke up. She snarls back that simply breaking up isn't the only reason he's about to get thrashed, before landing a solid punch right in his face. Moroccan gives the signal for Jyn Runandell to move. He leaps into the fray, prepared to strike Quickle. She is visibly stunned, exclaiming, "What is this human?" She knows her draconic hide is nearly impossible to pierce, even for Mirin's fangs, which means it should be incredibly difficult for Jyn Runandell to inflict any real damage with just one blow. However, he spots a minuscule opening and notices the lingering traces of Mirin's shadow energy around the spot. Channeling the power of shadow energy liberation, he thrusts his sword forward, piercing her defenses and stabbing deep into her flesh. She lets out a piercing shriek of pain as he slashes her arm and wing. Moroccan praises him, noting that while he's exhausted all his power, it was a job well done. Jyn Runandell feels utterly drained and wonders if he somehow just became a dragon slayer. He accepts Moroccan's praise, replying, "All right, here's hoping she's cooled off a bit now." Jyn Runandell then asks if the battle is finally over. Moroccan gravely responds that it is far from finished. He explains that most ordinary dragons would have perished from such a wound, but she is different. Dragons with dominion over time are not so easily vanquished. The kind of power this reborn Manhwa hides is on another level entirely. A worried Jyn Runandell asks if they might lose her before they even locate the missing dragon. Standing on Mirin's hand, Jyn Runandell watches her intently. He asks, "Is she reversing time?" Mirin explains that this is the fundamental difference between authority and magic, adding that while it's an immensely powerful ability, it consumes a vast amount of energy. He warns Jyn not to move an inch, just in case she reverts back to her human form. Merkin then tentatively asks if she's calmed down at all, joking that he was unaware she still harbored such intense feelings for him that it would drive her into a rage. Merkin then has the audacity to ask if they didn't part on good terms. Miss Quickle, absolutely incensed, reminds him that he was the one who abandoned her, doing so unilaterally and leaving no room for discussion. She sarcastically asks if that's his definition of parting on good terms. Merkin admits that she flies into a rage whenever he mentions their breakup, but he is quick to clarify that he was never unfaithful. He claims it was simply a case of their personalities being fundamentally incompatible. Jyn Runandell, meanwhile, reflects on the sheer absurdity of witnessing a spat between dragons who have lived for thousands of years. Merkin tries to steer the conversation back on track, insisting that he didn't come here to argue, but to ask her something of great importance. Miss Quickle silences him, her gaze shifting to the human beside him as she demands to know if Jyn is his contractor. Merkin dismisses her question entirely, emphasizing that the human's identity is not the critical issue at the moment. He stresses that one of their own kind is currently in grave danger. However, Miss Quickle remains completely unmoved by his urgency, labeling Merkin as utterly despicable and reminding him of the countless dragons he has slaughtered. She seems baffled by this sudden display of concern, questioning whether he's merely playing games with her and demanding to know if he truly grasps how many of their kind have fallen by his hand. Merkin acknowledges her point but explains that among those he slew was the sworn enemy of her older brother, an act he carried out as a form of revenge. He clarifies that he did this for someone to whom he had no direct connection, implying his hand was forced in the matter. He admits that perhaps it was a mistake to approach her at all, musing that he could have just asked another dragon for help. Miss Quickle takes a moment to compose herself, acknowledging that the sight of Merkin always causes her emotions to run wild. She then tells him to get on with it and asks what he came for, offering a curt apology for her outburst. He immediately explains that one of Ael's guardian dragons has gone missing recently. Miss Quickle's expression changes as she asks if he means Tick and Latry, to which Merkin confirms. He replies casually, "Yeah, that was the name." Jyn Runandell realizes that they are finally reaching the true purpose of this visit. She finds this strange, remarking that Latry was taken by a dragon named Vad not long ago. The name instantly triggers a memory for Jyn Runandell, who recalls that Vad is a wind dragon, a subordinate of Ulta, the god of wind, and also the guardian dragon for Andre, the vice-head of the Zippel clan, the kind of powerful connection a reborn Manhwa hides until the perfect moment. He immediately begins to suspect a sinister connection to the Zippel family. Miss Quickle confirms his fears, stating that the Zippels had mentioned they were going to teach Latry dragon language magic, which now sounds like a clear pretext for a trap, prompting her to suggest they relocate to avoid it. She proposes they backtrack a short distance to bypass any potential danger and enter her domains safely, offering to guide them to her lair herself. A short while later, deep in a forest on the outskirts of Beeman's capital, Jyn Runandell formally introduces himself to Miss Quickle, explaining that he is Soldier's contractor. She coolly acknowledges this, revealing she already knew he was a descendant of Timar, almost as if he were reincarnated from that very bloodline, and correctly identifies him as the youngest son. A stunned Jyn Runandell asks how she could possibly know that. Miss Quickle simply responds that it is completely obvious. She explains it's because he radiates the exact same aura as Timar, and reminisces that the three of them used to spend a great deal of time together over 1,000 years ago, adding that she only guessed he was the youngest based on his guardian dragon's protective reactions. She takes a thoughtful sip of tea and suggests they move on to the main topic. She then begins to explain that Vad took Latri about. 1 year ago, Merkin confirmed they enticed Latri with the promise of teaching dragon language magic, and she remarks that this whole situation doesn't sit well with her. She concedes that while the offer might have been genuine, Ael's current contractor is far too young to properly wield that authority. She then questions if it would be perilous for them without their guardian dragon's protection. Muin concurs, adding that Vad should be well aware of this fact. She finds the logic sound, but begins to question if there's a more clandestine motive at play. Moroccan, ever perceptive, picks up on her tone, asking if her comment implies she knows something more. And just as he suspected, she reveals that when Vada took Ree, she paid a visit to Beement, mentioning she wanted to introduce Ree to her. However, Vada seems strangely fixated on meeting her contractor, requesting an audience without providing any clear justification. She admits that her own volatile temper nearly prompted an aggressive response, but she wisely held back, as her contractor's identity had unfortunately already been exposed. Considering that many influential figures in B's upper echelons maintain close ties with the Zippel family, lashing out would have placed her contractor in grave danger. At this, Jyn Runandell remarks that the circumstances surrounding her contractor's identity being revealed are quite peculiar. He points out that while Aesel's contractor remains a secret, it's highly suspicious how they managed to uncover this information and then immediately approach Ree. Moroccan agrees, noting the strangeness of it all, and wonders aloud if some form of contractor detection magic was developed during his long slumber. But she firmly insists that's impossible. No one can detect a contractor's identity before they personally manifest their divine authority. Even if such a spell were to exist, she questions what possible advantage it could offer its wielder. Jyn Runandell then proceeds to outline two significant benefits the Zippel family could gain from it. First, they could preemptively minimize risks by eliminating contractors outside their control. Second, by dispatching the contractor, the Zippel family could potentially secure an opportunity to forge a contract with that god themselves. He then reflects that it's likely not just a mere chance to form a contract. They almost certainly have a specific, proven method. He recalls from his past life that the contractor for Ulta, the god of time, was officially presented at the stone statue. He remembers clearly that 10 years from this very moment, that contractor was a pure-blooded member of the Zippel clan, which leads him to a chilling conclusion. If they eliminate a contractor, they can usurp the contract with that god. This dawning realization makes him suspect that what this reincarnated, reborn Manhwa hides is the true reason Julia's guardian dragon was abducted, especially since he had never even heard of the Princess of Tikkun during his previous life. She counters by pointing out that there are numerous assumptions circulating about Solder's contractor, making it difficult for her to accept that the Zippels would even need another one. She presses him, asking why they would target other contractors when they already possess so many, suggesting that Jyn Runandell might simply be overly paranoid because the Zippels are his sworn enemy. He retorts that she's speaking falsehoods despite her disbelief, stating that while he may not understand the nature of dragons, human greed is an insatiable abyss. Even when they reach the absolute pinnacle, they are never satisfied and will invariably crave more. He reminds her that the Zippel family has maintained its iron grip on power for thousands of years, so it's hardly surprising that they would resort to any means necessary to preserve it. She finally concedes that the Zippel leadership is undeniably scheming something, but she questions why he's feigning ignorance and wonders aloud if he's actually afraid of them. Moroccan quickly interjects, calling for calm and pointing out that everyone present is already well aware of the Zippel's boundless avarice. While he loathes to admit it, her skill is undeniable. He stresses that an ounce of caution is worth a pound of cure and advises her to depart. Beement just laughs, remarking that he's changed so significantly, he's practically a reincarnated man, since it's a rare sight to see him reading the room. She then agrees to his terms, to let her contractor escape first, but then she offers her assistance. Moroccan, taken by surprise, asks her to clarify what she means. She explains that she must confront Vad to uncover the truth, pointing out that if their information is accurate, the Zippel are undoubtedly just waiting for the perfect opportunity to make their move. She adds that if she were to fall, they would most likely come swarming in. As Miss Quick Annalie turns to depart, she gently places a hand on Jyn Runandell's shoulder, remarking that she feels a profound sense of duty toward his lineage, and seeing one of his descendants brings back a flood of memories from the old days. She notes that even his particular brand of arrogance is a perfect match. She then announces her intention to contact Vad. At that very moment, Enya arrives, calling out that she has returned. Spotting the others, she asks who they might be. Miss Quick Annalie begins to scold her for venturing outside, but she quickly corrects herself, muttering, "Actually, this is even better." She proceeds to introduce Enya as the contractor for Ulta, the god of time, and then presents Jyn Runandell. She explains that Marin is protecting Enya. Enya is completely starstruck and asks with breathless excitement if it's truly Jyn Runandell. if the young master Jyn is actually standing right before her very eyes. Jyn Runandell, caught off guard by her intense reaction, asks what's happening. Miss Quick Anley covers her face with her palm, explaining that she completely forgot to mention that Enya harbors something of a massive fixation on him. Enya then enthusiastically begs Jyn Runandell for an autograph, prompting Miss Quick Anley to ask Enya to please maintain at least a shred of her dignity as a contractor. Enya, suddenly realizing her gaffe, bows deeply in apology, explaining that she lost all composure upon seeing Jyn Runandell in the flesh after only ever seeing his picture in the newspapers. She then formally introduces herself, admitting that she is merely a commoner who attends the academy on a full scholarship. Jyn Runandell then recalls hearing that the god Ulta places immense importance on a contractor's bloodline, which makes him wonder if Enya's talents are so profoundly exceptional that her commoner status was completely disregarded. He reassures her that there's no need to apologize, acknowledging that he's not quite sure how to properly respond to such an enthusiastic welcome. Enya then asks if she's allowed to express even more excitement, but he swiftly shuts that idea down. Miss Quick Anley then shifts the focus of the conversation, reminding Enya that she had specifically instructed her not to leave the house earlier. Enya explains that it was getting a bit lonely at home, so she figured she might feel better if she was near Miss Quick Anley. Just as she was thinking that, she happened to see Jyn Runandell in person, adding that it was incredibly fortunate that she decided to come and find Miss Quick Anley. Jyn Runandell reflects on her status as a commoner and an academy scholarship student, noting to himself that the academy's nobility must have bullied her relentlessly, completely oblivious to the truth the reborn Manhwa hides about her true importance. He finds this entirely unsurprising, considering that's precisely why he never bothered associating with those fools at the academy, or as he calls them, those ignoble idiots. Enya then turns to Jyn and asks why he has come here. Jyn Runandell reveals that he's here specifically for her, explaining that there is a distinct possibility that someone is targeting her because she is Ulta's current contractor, and he invites her to come with him. He gives his word that he will ensure her safety and extends his hand in a gesture of invitation. Enya, utterly astonished, asks if he really means to take her with him, her excitement becoming palpable. She exclaims that her prayers to the great Ulta are finally being answered, feeling as though her entire life is about to be reborn, and she expresses her unwavering devotion. Miss Quantle cuts in, telling her that's quite enough, but Enya is far too eager, declaring she's ready to depart and begins chanting, "All hail Ulta! All hail the god of time!" Miss Quickle then abruptly knocks her unconscious, remarking that she had been worried Enya might be reluctant to go, but her concern was clearly baseless, seeing how incredibly enthusiastic she became after Jyn's invitation. It seemed she would follow him into the very depths of the Runsandell's underground prison. Jyn Runandell, looking baffled, questions her about an underground prison, flatly stating that their clan possesses no such thing. Miss Quickle retorts that there's no need to play innocent, adding that the secret about the dragon there is the kind of truth a reincarnated, reborn Manhwa hides. Both Jyn and Morin are utterly stunned, demanding to know what she means, just as Mirren collapses onto the sofa, unconscious. Miss Quickle observes his condition, noting with a hint of sarcasm that he couldn't even manage to stay awake for a single minute. Miss Quickle clarifies that her offer to aid Jyn isn't merely due to her loyalty to Tamor or out of concern for Anya's safety. The primary motivation, she reveals, is the exhausted dragon who just passed out. She explains that Mirren has yet to realize how profoundly weak he's become. She had been withholding her criticism, but it's painfully obvious he's no longer strong enough to confront Vad if they are forced to fight. She offers to step in for him. Jyn Runandell then asks if Vad is truly that formidable. Miss Quickle affirms that while Vad is indeed powerful, the more pressing issue is Mirren's severely weakened state. She mentions that her attack at sea, an assault that Morin would have found laughable 1,000 years ago, had a substantial impact on him considering his current physical condition. She suggests they need a safe place to hide until Vad arrives, offering her own home as a refuge. Jyn asks if he might take her up on that favor. Miss Quickle agrees, so long as he doesn't object, but warns that he'll be the one responsible for convincing Mirren, who is absolutely bound to complain about staying at his ex's house. Jyn Runandell reflects on the silver dragon, realizing she is far more thoughtful than he had initially presumed. He agrees to the proposed arrangement, acknowledging that he will have to manage Mirren's inevitable reaction. "All right," Miss Quickle says, "then it's about time." Jyn asks what she means. She explains that in roughly 10 seconds, Anya will awaken, and suggests he choose his words very carefully to explain the current predicament to her. Jyn is taken aback, wondering how Anya could possibly wake up so quickly after being knocked out, noting that even a seasoned martial artist wouldn't recover with such speed. At that very moment, Enya awakens, calling out to Surge. Miss Quickle remarks that there exists a realm beyond simple logic or reasoning, implying that Enya's recovery might be a part of it, before leaving the entire explanation to him. After a short while, Enya sits across from Jyn Runandell and asks him to confirm that a hostile faction is targeting the contractor of Tikkun, and that she herself might be their next target. She then says she believes it all because it comes from Sir Jyn, remarking that the whole idea of schemes, adventures with dragons, and Sir Jyn himself sounds strangely romantic. Jyn Runandell acknowledges her unique perspective, agreeing that he could see it in that light. Enya comments that it is always better to be optimistic, adding that in any event, she will need to prepare to relocate to Tikkun along with her family. Enya then asks when she should plan to leave. Jyn Runandell suggests the sooner, the better. She confidently responds that she can be ready by tomorrow, mentioning that her family is comprised of her 7-year-old, a brother and an old dog named Poofy. Jyn considers this manageable, urging her to begin packing without delay. Miss Quickle advises her to return home and finalize her preparations today, adding that she ought to leave before it gets too late. As she begins to leave, she promises she'll see him the next day. Miss Quickle points out that she'll need to fabricate an excuse for the academy, suggesting she claimed to be sick to avert any suspicion. Jyn agrees, observing that if they were to claim she was dropping out, it would likely provoke unwanted inquiries. Miss Quickle concludes that for now, they must concentrate all their efforts on dealing with Vad. At that very moment, a man in a cap calls out from beyond the room, asking if anyone is inside and stating that he has come to ask for some firewood. Miss Quickle immediately finds this suspicious, pointing out that there's an abundance of wood nearby and questioning why anyone would need to ask for it. Jyn Runandell cautions her to wait, asking if she truly believes they've come merely for firewood. He then remarks that perhaps not all dragons share such a laid-back attitude. He advises her that the individual outside is almost certainly from Bean's special forces, before swiftly concealing his own face with a mask. A shocked Miss Quickle questions why on earth they would send special forces. Jyn explains it's likely because of Miss Anya, who he suspects has been monitoring this location and is now trying to identify the outsiders she brought. Jyn Runandell scoffs at the very notion of surveillance, wondering aloud if they truly possess the audacity to keep tabs on him, a man who has been reincarnated with secrets they couldn't possibly comprehend. With that, Miss Quickle flings open the door, where the man in the cap immediately reports that she's inside. She instantly seizes him by the neck, demanding he state clearly if he's with Bean's special forces. The man chokes out a protest, insisting he has no involvement in anything of the sort. She demands to know who sent him. As if on cue, Raz enters the room, calmly explaining that he sent the man. He then asks Miss Quickle to release her grip, warning that if she were to kill the scout, the rest of the special forces would come rushing in. She releases her hold, acknowledging Raz as the one in charge, before declaring that if she must kill someone, it might as well be him. Without a moment's hesitation, she lunges toward Raz, poised to strike, proclaiming that killing him might be the only way to quell her fury. Raz remains perfectly composed, coolly asking if that would truly be enough to settle her anger. Miss Quickle notes that Raz took her hit directly and appears completely unaffected, a clear sign that he's no ordinary member of Bean's Special Affairs Division. Her eyes fall upon his red mask, a color exclusive to group leaders within the division, and she also notes that he wields a curved sword. The combination of these distinct traits leads her to a single, undeniable conclusion about his identity. He must be none other than the Emperor's right-hand man, the leader of Group 3 in Bean's Special Affairs Division, a man known as Raz. He's also renowned as a master swordsman, even among the formidable Runandels. Jyn internally considers that Raz is undoubtedly powerful, estimating his power is at least at an 8-star level just from his aura. He's immensely glad he covered his face with Mu's rune. It's the kind of vital secret a character in a ****reborn Manhwa hides **** to survive. Miss Quickle remarks that Raz is quite skilled for a mere human, grudgingly acknowledging his strength after her initial attack. Raz offers an apology if he has offended Miss Quickle, explaining that they had no other choice but to confirm the identities of the guests she smuggled into Beament. He states that now that they have their confirmation, he will be taking his leave. Miss Quickle remains thoroughly unimpressed, retorting that a simple apology means nothing after such a rude intrusion. Her personal space, reminding her that there's a limit to how much arrogance one can display. Raz then nonchalantly picks up a nearby box, casually mentioning that he saw Miss Inia departing from the house in quite a hurry. He pointedly asks if Miss Quantel doesn't consider it incredibly risky for the young lady to be wandering about all by herself so late into the night. He issues a stark warning. If she insists on a confrontation here and now, she might gain a temporary advantage, but it would place Miss Inia in grave danger should something unfortunate befall her in the meantime. He presses the question, asking if she truly wishes to proceed, heavily implying that such a choice would lead to catastrophic consequences. Raz then concludes his threat, stating that if she refrains from escalating the situation, he will overlook this incident for now. However, he cautions her that their next encounter will demand she wager something she holds incredibly precious, forcing her to put everything she has ever protected on the line. He advises her to brace herself for the possibility of losing it all, simply because of the choices she made today, before bidding her a chilling farewell until they meet again. A short time later, Raz is seen striding through the forest, issuing orders to his guard. He confirms that the smugglers have indeed shown themselves and instructs his men to return and uncover their identities. He adds that, for the time being, all surveillance on the Silver Dragon is to be suspended. His subordinate questions this, asking if they shouldn't persist in monitoring the movements of both Quantel and the smugglers. Raz firmly advises against it, explaining that any further provocation could spiral into a far worse scenario, and he assures them that he will personally take full responsibility for this decision. With that, he commands a full withdrawal. It is then he notices a fresh cut on his hand, sparking a suspicion that his adversaries are planning something significant. He warns that everyone could be in peril, ordering an immediate halt to all close-range surveillance until they observe any further unusual activity. His guard acknowledges the command, confirming his understanding of Section 4. The scene cuts to Miss Quantel's mounting frustration. Meanwhile, Miss Quantel slams her fist onto a table, cursing her own decision to leave Inia alone in this wretched town. She admits that if Jyn, Runandell, and Morin had not arrived in the nick of time, she dreads to imagine what might have occurred. Jyn Runandell calmly suggests they should focus on being grateful they prevented a far worse outcome, proposing that from this point forward, Miss Enia's safety must be their absolute top priority. Miss Quantel concurs, declaring that they must make their move on the very next day. The scene then transitions to the following morning, where Jyn Runandell and Miss Quantel are found standing atop a mountain, observing the ships departing from the distant coastline. Jyn remarks with relief that he successfully found a merchant vessel bound for Tikkun. He reassures her that he paid the captain a considerable sum of money to guarantee Enia's completely safe passage. Furthermore, he adds, Morin is personally acting as her escort, leaving no room for worry. However, Miss Quantel retorts that Morin's very involvement is what concerns her most. She then prepares for her own departure, stating her intention to contact Vet immediately and indicating that Jyn Runandell can arrange a meeting with her as soon as Morin has returned. The story then jumps forward 1 week, where Morin is seen standing in front of a particular house. Jyn Runandell approaches, commending him on a job well done. Morin then comments that Quantel is far more bitter than he had anticipated. Jyn questions the sudden remark, asking why he's bringing it up now. In response, Morin reveals that this very house was constructed back when he and Quickle were together, long ago. He adds that he now understands her reasoning for allowing them to stay in this place. Jyn teases him, asking if his cold, detached heart is finally starting to thaw. Morin scoffs at the notion, stating that rekindling old feelings is nearly impossible. However, Morin reflects that the memories from 1,000 years past, in a house just like this, remind him of a tragic tale where a reincarnated, reborn Manhwa hides its deepest sorrows. The pleasant memories he shared with Tor and Quick. He admits that no matter what they got up to back then, it was always a good time. A wave of melancholy washes over him as he recalls those days. Jyn Runandell picks up on this, asking if he's all right. Murakhan waves it off, claiming it's nothing more than a sudden headache. Just then, Miss Quickle materializes, mockingly remarking on how pathetic he looks and asking if a short flight has already worn him out. Murakhan fires back, telling her to shut it and insisting that regardless of how much his power has waned, he wouldn't get tired from something so minor. Jyn Runandell cuts in, urging him to pull himself together. She then reports that Veta has responded, and the meeting has been arranged for the following night on a desolate island just off Bian's southern coast. Jyn Runandell then asks what her strategy is for when she confronts Veta. Miss Quickle states plainly that she'll inquire about Assel's guardian dragon, Lorai, and if he feigns ignorance, she'll simply resort to brute force. Jyn Runandell finds her direct approach quite refreshing and appreciates the lack of pretense. Murakhan comments that it's not a terrible plan, but if he were in her shoes, he'd steer clear of such a troublesome affair. He then has a realization, since Miss Quickle isn't accompanied by Anya, she's free to act as she pleases. However, he quickly backtracks, saying, "Wait, no, don't you dare do anything reckless." Murakhan adds that no matter how weakened he's become, he doesn't need any pity from his former lover. She counters that this isn't about pity, it concerns Anya, and their adversary is serious about the concept of dragon honor. Miss Quickle continues, saying this guarantees he will arrive alone, and then asks if Murakhan truly thinks she would ever lose to someone of his caliber. She advises him to simply stay back and relax. Murakhan, however, considers that in all likelihood they won't be arriving by themselves. If they genuinely abducted Latri and are scheming with the contract, it's a classic setup where a reborn Manhwa hides in ambush. They will undoubtedly show up with their forces fully mobilized. She then shifts into her dragon form and soars away from the location. Sometime later, Andre Zippel formally greets her, stating that it is an honor to meet Quickenall, the silver dragon of time, and that he is delighted to finally make her acquaintance. Veta, in turn, acknowledges the winged dragon, the vice head of Zippel, and Melzer's contractor. He formally introduces himself as Andre Zippel. Miss Quickle immediately confronts Veta, pointing out that he promised he would arrive on his own. He smoothly replies that he was already with Andre when her letter arrived, and since Andre was also intrigued by the matter of Ulta's contractor, he decided to bring him along. He expresses his hope that she will understand and forgive the intrusion. She concedes that she has been rather discourteous herself lately. He then suggests that if she's prepared to address the primary subject of their meeting, they should begin, as he has a crucial matter to discuss concerning Ingla's contract. She cuts straight to the chase, demanding to know Latri's current whereabouts. He lets out a chuckle, remarking that he now sees he was deceived. He muses, "So of course, that's what you've been fixated on this entire time." She demands that he answer her question directly, reminding him that he was the one who took Latri 1 year ago. Ever since that day, Assel's contractor has been unable to locate his guardian dragon. He calmly states that he's unsure what answer would appease her, but he can assure her that Latri is perfectly safe. She snaps back, asking how he has the audacity to jest with her about this. He replies that he doesn't comprehend her relationship with a mere contractor, but it would be unwise for her to interfere in Zippel's internal affairs. She retorts that he must have been reincarnated as a complete fool. Mind. Abducting a juvenile dragon, naive to the ways of the world, is an unforgivable transgression. Jyn Runandell and Murakhan take cover behind a rock outcropping, the latter muttering curses at Vad's audacity. Jyn Runandell simply notes how utterly arrogant the man is, as Vader proclaims that he sees this pointless debate will lead nowhere and summons a ferocious windstorm. With the gale howling, he proposes a bargain. If she relinquishes the contract, he will graciously spare her life. She merely scoffs at his sheer nerve, dismissing him as nothing but an old lizard. In response, he lunges at her, declaring that if that is her final answer, she should prepare for oblivion. In a flash of light, she reverts to her true dragon form and surges backward, countering with an offer of her own. If he returns Latry to her this instant, she will grant him the mercy of a painless death. Andre Zippel lets out a hearty laugh, observing how she effortlessly deflected Vader's assault before beginning to channel his own immense mana into an arcane staff. He remarks that it has been far too long since he has had an opportunity to go all out and attack with his full, unrestrained power. Jyn Runandell observes this immense buildup of energy, realizing it's the first time he's witnessed a 9-star mage's mana since his rebirth. He muses that in any tale where a reincarnated, reborn Manhwa hides their power, the Zippel family would be the final boss, a fact he knows all too well. Therefore, he can only wonder what depths of power Andre truly commands. Meanwhile, Andre Zippel calls out to his comrades, announcing that it is time to coordinate their efforts. The silver dragons of time stand ready. She instantly perceives the threat and attempts to evade, but her body feels like lead, and her wings refuse to lift her from the ground. Andre Zippel gloats, declaring that the very wind has turned traitor, reminding her that every gust and gale on this island is under his absolute command. He proclaims himself the king of Melgar, the veritable god of the wind, and that none may take to the skies without his express permission, sneering that she was never a match for him. As Vader launches another spell in her direction, she dismisses their combined efforts with a contemptuous laugh, asking if that is truly the best they can muster. Andre retorts that she is sorely mistaken and that he will now give her a lesson in what real power looks like. She clearly underestimated him if she believed his domain was limited to the wind. With a roar, he unleashes a maelstrom of crackling lightning, bellowing for her to perish. Jyn Runandell frantically urges Moroccan to intervene, but the Black Dragon holds him back, calmly stating, "Not yet." He then explains that while Quick Candle admittedly let her guard down, their foolish opponents are utterly drunk on their own arrogance. Just as the spell is about to connect, Quick Candle unleashes her true authority, and Jyn Runandell feels the entire world grind to a halt. Time itself is frozen. With a flick of her claw, she redirects Andre Zippel's attack, sending it careening harmlessly into the distance. Andre Zippel stammers in disbelief, exclaiming that the power to command time itself, to stop a spell in its tracks, is a legendary ability he has not witnessed in an eternity. Quick Candle vows to tear that arrogant smirk from his face. Recovering his composure, Andre Zippel taunts that she gets awfully worked up over a single spell, before ordering Vad to launch the next wave of attacks. But Vad remains completely still. Andre Zippel shouts at him, demanding to know why he isn't moving, only to realize that Vader's body is completely paralyzed. It dawns on him that this is the lingering effect of her time magic, and Quick Candle wastes no time in pressing her newfound advantage. She lunges forward, seizing Andre Zippel by the tail and hurling him with tremendous force across the battlefield, where he crashes into a mountain of rock with a sickening crunch. As Andre screams in pain, Quick Candle turns her attention to the frozen Vad, roaring, "How dare you stand against me?" She tells him to go ahead and keep serving his master, that insignificant, lowly lizard. She then commands the silver dragon, "Cease your movements," responds with a sneer, "Silence your tongue and simply bear witness." His turn is next, believing Vad has been thoroughly taken care of. However, he has used far too much of his authority and realizes he needs the help of Jyn Runandell and Morin to dispose of the mage. Andre Zippel muses that he went too far, remarking that such arrogance is a privilege reserved for the strong. Morin asks in disbelief, "Is that an origin stone?" "Impossible. It should have been utterly destroyed eons ago," he exclaims, staring at Andre Zippel's monstrous form. "How could you possibly possess it?" The silver dragon of time reflects, "I was born and lived my life as if I were the strongest being. But I was gravely mistaken. Humans, dragons, and even the gods themselves will all inevitably fall into the hands of the Zippel family," Andre declares with chilling conviction. Meanwhile, the silver dragon commands him, "Stop denying reality and accept it." With a furious roar, Morin confirms his worst fear. It is the origin stone. He recalls its lore, a failsafe forged by the gods as a final measure to prevent the apocalypse should danger ever befall the world. In the end, the stone that held the combined power of all the gods was shattered by its own creators. The truth, this *** reborn Manhwa, hides ***, is that the gods themselves feared its power. It was so potent that it could have unmade the world. Instead, he is left wondering why an object that should be nothing but dust is now in the hands of this mage. He calls out to Quick Candle as the silver dragon asks, "What is the meaning of this?" Andre Zippel simply lets out a cold, condescending laugh. "They are merely exemplifying the reverence the weak should show before the strong," he proclaims. "Where else should the powerless be? In the face of absolute might?" The silver dragon snarls a warning, "Get away from Quick Candle," as Andre Zippel turns his attention to the black dragon. "There are only 2 black dragons left in this world," he states, indicating he is looking at one of them right now, Jyn Runandell's companion Morin. "So, you've finally awakened from your 1,000-year slumber, have you? That must mean the boy beside you is your contractor. And you must be the youngest one," he continues, "the one who fled the Runandell household not too long ago, Jyn Runandell. I came here with the simple plan of taking Ulta's contractor," he gloats, "but it seems my meal has just gotten significantly larger. To be fair, I will." Awaken my own friend who is sleeping. I shouldn't have been conserving my energy in the first place. My apologies, old friend." While the black dragon thought he was truly dead and had berated him, a familiar voice says, "It's been a while." It was as if Vad had been reincarnated ***. The black dragon tells him to get lost. Vad simply remarks, "Although you've grown weaker, your words are as harsh as ever. Now, go back to sleep." Morin attacks him with the full might of the black dragon. Vad counterattacks and says, "This is good. I'd have been quite dispirited if you were too weak." He continues, "Be happy, Morin. You are going to be recorded in history as the one who killed a legend. Stop kidding yourself, you're insane." Morin roars. Andre Zippel interjects, "Are you two going to continue this pointless fight? I was planning to go easy on you," he says, his eyes narrowing. "But now that I've seen that look on your face, I have to kill you." Jyn Runandell's voice cuts in. "That's right, I was also here." Jyn Runandell states, but Andre dismisses him. Having a child interfere in this won't change a thing, and launches an attack at him. Vad counterattacks and taunts, "Don't even think of dodging, kid." In response, Jyn Runandell grabs her ethereal chain and shatters it. At the same time, he breaks her mirror. A new voice rings out, "You haven't contacted me even once, but it seems you've gotten yourself into quite a tough situation." "Our youngest, Jyn Runandell," the newcomer says. Andre Zippel stares at her, his mind racing, wondering if she is the legendary white whale. She replies by identifying her foe, "I see the vice-patriarch of Zippel and his wind dragon." She then adds with a smirk, "Now this is a level of trouble worthy of my attention." She turns to Jyn and asks, "Youngest brother, were you truly holding on for this long against these monsters all by yourself?" Opponents, immediately asking if he was hurt, Jyn Runandell confessed that he had, in fact, been pushed dangerously close to his limit, and expressed his gratitude for her arrival. She then turned her steely gaze to Andre Zippel, questioning if he planned to remain silent and demanding he explain precisely what business he had with her younger brother. Internally, Jyn Runandell processed the fact that his sister's adversaries were none other than the vice-patriarch of Zippel and a wind dragon, resurrected by an artifact infused with divine power. He mused that the situation had seemed dire even with his sister's intervention, but now a wave of assurance began to wash over him. In his mind, this battle was already won. Andre Zippel commanded his forces to stand down just as Murakhan arrived on the scene, grabbing hold of him. He instantly recognized the newcomer as Murakhan, who apologized, explaining their total control over the wind had prevented him from intervening sooner. He remarked, "Well, at least I have an incredible sister. If she'd been even a single moment later, we would have been completely finished." Jyn Runandell acknowledged they owed their survival to him, admitting that he certainly hadn't anticipated this turn of events. He had expected the white whale to appear, but this development made one thing crystal clear. Andre Zippel snarled that she had violated their oath with the Zippel clan, accusing Luna Runandell of using magic and warning that Zippel would not overlook such a transgression. Luna simply acknowledged his threat without a hint of worry, stating that the truth would never reach his clan. Enraged, Andre Zippel questioned how she dared to overstep her bounds as his monstrous companion roared. In a flash, she struck him down, knocking him unconscious. She commented disdainfully that every Zippel she'd ever met was all talk, and the vice-patriarch was clearly no exception. She then turned to Vad, asking if he intended to remain in his draconic form, adding that it suited her just fine since it offered a larger target to cut. Vad promptly shifted into his human form as Andre Zippel called out to him. He acknowledged the command and gripped his magical spear, sensing that her power wasn't magic. It felt more akin to authority, yet also shared similarities with demonic energy, which explained why the wind dragon was now unleashing his full strength. Luna observed that it seemed he needed more time to properly wield that artifact's power. She then stated, "Look at this pathetic state, the vice-patriarch of Zippel and a wind dragon, both depending on such a crude device." She then asked, "Do you honestly believe a trinket like that can save you?" Vad retorted, calling her an insignificant wench as he launched his attack, demanding to know what gave her the right to speak so arrogantly. She met his charge with a swift counterattack, and the two clashed, trying to overwhelm one another in a flurry of repeated blows. Soon, Vad was wounded. Luna declared that, in the end, this was the absolute limit of his power, and it appeared he had nothing more to show her, so she would conclude things swiftly. She then unleashed the Runandell's third ultimate technique, Meteor Shower, upon him. Jyn Runandell reflected that, in essence, their clan's swordsmanship was that of a conqueror utterly destructive and relentless, embodying competition, attainment, and relish. The very spirit of Runandell is infused into the blade itself. He understood that for this very reason, Runandell's swordsmanship had no use for rigid forms. Its techniques were designed for the sole purpose of annihilating the enemy. He knew of the secret moves and, beyond them, the final moves, the kind of ultimate power reincarnated, reborn Manhwa hides until the climax. As Jyn Runandell contemplated that third ultimate technique, Meteor Shower, he perceived it as both blindingly beautiful and despairingly powerful. Just then, the white whale struck. Vad cried out, asking if Andre Zippel was all right, who in turn yelled for him to snap out of it. Andre Zippel, in utter disbelief, questioned how any of this was possible, noting that she wasn't wielding the authority of a god through a contract or any known means. An ancient artifact. He questions how such a feat could be possible, wielded by someone with the strength of a mere mortal. Human. Meanwhile, Vader resolves that he only needs to endure. If he can survive this onslaught, there's still a path to victory with the magical Godstone. With it, they can completely reverse their fortunes. He declares that even if he were to perish protecting him, he could simply be brought back to life with its power. His thoughts race. That's right, it's not finished. As long as I possess this magical Godstone, I am immortal. As long as I hold this, I am a god. Meanwhile, she notes that she still has a long way to go before reaching her father's level of swordsmanship. Standing beside Vader's shattered wing, she muses that this will serve as excellent study material, and it will undoubtedly provoke him further. He reflects that if she fails to reach her father's mastery, in the end, even the youngest will grasp this truth. As a monstrous form materializes behind her, she remarks, "Now, this is beginning to wound my pride, and I'll become quite irritated if he continues this persistence in front of my brother." With that, she launches an attack on the beast. Jyn Runandell demands to know what that is, and Morin confirms his suspicions. Now that Zippel has forged a source stone using various factors, he questions what Morin means by a source stone. Morin explains that it's like a weapon from a tale where a reincarnated, reborn Manhwa hides its true power, created for gods to keep each other in check. Thankfully, its current form appears to be a crude imitation. However, that does not diminish the fact that it is incredibly dangerous. Black Dragon declares that they will escape this place and instructs Mayan to wait. Jyn Runandell proposes they fight alongside her, insisting he cannot possibly leave his Newfound to face such a dangerous opponent alone. Black Dragon firmly disagrees, stating his sister is more than capable of handling an adversary of that level by herself, and at this moment, they are merely an obstruction. "So, let's fall back," he urges. Jyn thinks about forging the contract with the Solderet and returning to meet Miyu. He who began with luck and abilities far surpassing others, yet even he is now. He realizes he must retreat without offering any proper resistance. At this rate, the outcome will be identical to that dreadful time. Never again, he vows internally. He cannot endure that feeling of powerlessness once more. He must become even stronger. He knows he is already intrepid, yet he's displaying this level of fighting spirit after witnessing that spectacle. Morin thinks, "I'm so proud of him, I could just bite him." His thoughts continue. Yes, that is sufficient. He refuses to let the fighting spirit that fuels his talent be extinguished. If he keeps it burning, he will undoubtedly become the best, and until that day, this Murakam will watch over his back. He thinks of his contractor of 1,000 years. Luna Runkendell questions him, "Do you truly believe you can kill me simply because your appearance has altered slightly? Are you thrashing about in your own delusions? What a pitiful man." He lunges at her, but she effortlessly blocks his attack and reveals, "At this very moment, there are 12 gods sealed within me." He scoffs, asking what could possibly be inside her, and if she possesses anything besides that oversized sword, so unbefitting of her frame, he demands she accept her fate and surrender here and now. He boasts that even if his own father were present, no one could possibly stand against him. She retorts coolly, "For a true swordsman, a single sword is all that is needed." She adds, "If you had confronted me with the magic you have spent an entire lifetime honing, you might have been worthy of witnessing at least half of the martial strength I have accumulated." She declares that, out of sympathy, she will show him precisely what cannot be reached with that mere crude object, and she will show him the power of a blade that has been polished and perfected into true strength. Vader stares at the crimson aura, thinking of the countless knights he has faced, but none have ever been like this. He vows that he will make her the arrogant wench is about to learn the true meaning of powerlessness as she unleashes the mind's sword Blood Moon against him. Luna Runkendell's assault is so overwhelming that Vada fears she'll be utterly consumed by the attack. Just then, Jyn Runkendell calls out to her, saying, to take his hand as she plummets downwards. He muses that today, it seems the youngest will be his savior, and she desperately reaches out to grasp his hand. Meanwhile, on another front, the agent codenamed Raz approaches Amr Beeman, who immediately inquires if the island has vanished entirely. Codename Raz confirms that it has. A bizarre vortex has also materialized, consuming all nearby matter, and an immense amount of mana was detected in that vicinity. While humans were involved, what is certain is that the energy signatures belong to the Silver Dragon and the Wind Dragon's magic power. Amir B questions what he means by Wind Dragon, and Raz explains that the division has long suspected that it was Vad from the Zippel family. Reports confirm that Vad had crossed the border shortly before the incident occurred. It appears the Wind Dragon has perished, Raz states, before being asked about the human mana. Did you identify its source? It seems to belong to the contractors, Raz replies. Amir B demands, what do you mean? Asterisk seems times to be contractors. Raz clarifies, they were the contractors and their guardian dragons. And that ominous energy, I believe it's connected to a secret so deep it's like a truth this reborn Manhwa hides from everyone. Amir B then shifts the topic. And what of Andre Zippel? Raz can only reply, we are still investigating. Amir B notes that recently, too many details have been omitted from the reports and asks if he has even identified who Quantel's guests were yet. Raz admits he has no excuse. Amir B sighs, well, there's no helping it. If you are unable to find out, then who possibly could? He then instructs him to ensure nothing leaks to the press. If you can't locate Mia by tonight, he commands, submit a missing person report. Turning to leave, he adds, deploy more personnel from the Special Affairs Division into Zippel territory. And make sure they are our best. Although we are on friendly terms with them, he continues, he's escalating this beyond what is necessary. and I am not a very patient man. I trust he knows that very well. Codename Raz simply responds, I will fulfill your expectations, Your Majesty. His Majesty, the Emperor. A short time later, two individuals are seated in a room where Sir Bashal begins by asking for pardon. He mentions that a devil stone was used. The other man confirms that's correct. A massive battle took place on the coast of Bent, involving the Silver Dragon and the Wind Dragon. And as a result, an entire island vanished, he continues. In its place, a vortex now churns, so I'm certain that a devil stone broke. At this, Vargaston furiously interrupts, demanding to know how they dared to destroy his creation in such a manner. They shouldn't use it so carelessly until it's perfected. He bellows, then chews a mouthful of food and spits it towards his companion's face. He declares he cannot forgive them and suggests they march over and confront them immediately, as those foolish mages clearly don't appreciate the value of that product. Sir Bashal shields his face from the spray of food, thinking to himself how those idiotic Zipples have made a complete mess of things. And thanks to them, he muses internally, I'll have to postpone eliminating this pig. Vargaston, however, misreads the situation, exclaiming, I knew it. Sir Bashal is furious too. I felt your murderous intent just now. Sir Bashal ignores him and states that because of this incident, their leader is exceptionally angry and wants to reconsider the alliance with the Zipple family. So for the time being, we are to ignore all communications from them, he concludes. Elsewhere, the conflict continues. Jyn Runandell launches a magical orb towards her target. She speculates that Andre Zipple is dead, while Cajun counters that he must have escaped with Philia, and likely took the Devil's Stone with him, he adds. She insists it must have been one of two things. Either the Silver Dragon's power was like that of a reincarnated god, far beyond their expectations, or perhaps another party interfered. Kaji responds, what else could it be? The Shadow Dragon was the one who slew the graveyard giant in Kilamisha. If we're talking about her level of strength, it all adds up, and she certainly wouldn't be intimidated by the Devil's Stone. She then asks, and who is this Misha? Moroccan's sister, he replies. Precisely. And to add another layer, Quickle is Miran's former lover. So she's not entirely unconnected to Misha. She replies, I see. It then became clear what his next move had to be. Kajin offers to go and find her, but he dismisses the idea. That's impossible. When black dragons want to disappear, it's like a plot from a reborn Manhwa hides its secrets. No one can ever find them. She laughs, telling him to stop being so childish. In any case, it's a shame we lost the Devil's Stone. He retorts that she seems perfectly fine, even though her younger brother has died. She replies, of course, I'm sad. However, I always knew this could happen, and I was the one shocked to learn he attended Kieran's banquet recently without a word to me. Cajun accuses her, you're lying. You should command the creator of the Devil's Stone to forge another. Without it, we have no chance of taking over the Runandell family before Chiron passes, and the same goes for the Black Sea. She coolly replies, I doubt he's the only one who is annoyed by this. He snaps back, stop being so naive. If you truly wish to take over the world, you need to handle at least this much. Or if your ambition is to become the god of this world, Carrick. Sometime later, Jyn Runandell knocks on the gate of Gilly's house. A voice from inside calls out, yes, please wait a moment. She opens the door and asks, who might you be? He replies, we have returned, Gilly. He then asks if she could prepare them a meal, explaining they couldn't eat anything while they were flying back. And he mentions that Lady Lunar Runcandle is also here. Merkin affectionately calls her strawberry pie, while Mirren uses a hand fan to cool Jill, while remarking, the young master is being expelled. Lady Quinella observes, it seems his nanny is misunderstanding something. It simply means she worries a great deal about him. He has a good nanny. Jyn Runandell remarks that she's far too good for him. Sir Kashmir Alan arrives at that moment and announces his return, asking, but who are these people? Jyn says it's a little sudden, but this is my eldest sister, Lunar Ran. She responds, so you are Sir Kashmir Alfan, the noble sword of whom I have heard so much. Jyn Runandell replies, it's quite embarrassing to be called the noble sword, and it is my honor to be able to serve you. The other person is Miss Anna, a guardian dragon, the silver dragon, Miss Quickhandle. Sir Kashmir Alfan's mind flashes to another dragon as he greets her. I am Kashmir Alfan, head of the Seven Colors and an acquaintance of young master Jyn Runandell. He thinks to himself, asterisk, I cannot make the same mistake as last time. Asterisk. Meanwhile, Jyn Runandell offers an apology, acknowledging that his unannounced arrival was discourteous. Sir Kashmir responds, it is quite all right. We are, after all, in the same boat. Lady Quinella then inquires about Miss Anna's whereabouts, and Sir Kashmir Alfan says, he was just about to mention it. 3 hours ago, Ree returned. Jyn Runandell asks, it happened just today, and he confirms it. Ree is currently with my daughter and Miss Anya. However, there's something unusual. It's as if she's been reincarnated. Ree doesn't have any memory of the time she was missing. Ree herself asks, was I kidnapped? He denies it, but she insists she knows for certain, mentioning Via's statement about not teaching her draconic magic and demanding to know what happened after that. Moroccan then observes that Lee appears to be in far too perfect a condition for someone who was supposedly threatened by the Zipple family. Perhaps she wasn't truly abducted after all, one might suggest, but Lunar Runandell immediately refutes that notion, stating she personally extracted their confession. Jyn counters that they are simply destroying the proof, prompting Jyn Runandell to demand, "What do you mean by proof?" He clarifies that they're likely wiping away every trace of the Devil's Stone, an act that includes purging Lat's very memories. He adds that complete and utter erasure is the Zippel family's signature move whenever a plan goes awry. Intrigued, Sir Kashmir Alphen inquires about this Devil's Stone, and Jyn Runandell reveals it's a powerful artifact currently in their possession. Miney elaborates on the Zippel's Vice Head and the Wind Dragon, explaining the artifact's terrifying ability to absorb the contractors of the gods,